In the book of Acts, chapter number 9, we encounter the story of Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, carrying papers in his hand authorized to be religious and to persecute those who were not religious the way he was religious. And it was all a religious event, even arresting people, until he got religion and got knocked off of his donkey and ended up saying, "Who are you, Adonai?" Mike, do you reckon that we might need to get knocked off of our donkey a bit?
Well, I got to tell you, Barry. So we started a few weeks ago. We've been talking about the Roman road. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Damascus road, and maybe we can find a couple more roads along the way as we continue on. But one of the things that you just kind of set that up for me that I find very intriguing is how there are things that are just repeated as truth, even though they're not stated in Scripture. Now, one of them is what you just said, and that is that he got knocked off his donkey. Well, if we go back and read it, there's nowhere it says that he got knocked off his donkey.
Well, I was trying to be polite.
I know you were. I know you were. But see, this is, I'm going to use that, and I know that you know better than this, but this is where I'd like to start with this whole account that it says that the falling to the ground. So he was on the road nearing Damascus when suddenly a light from heaven flashed all around him. And falling to the ground, he heard a voice saying, "Shaul, Shaul, why are you persecuting me?" Now, can you tell me where it says anything about a donkey in there?
Oh, that's in the Phillips translation. I've got
Okay,
that
okay,
here somewhere.
I thought so. Okay, I'm not picking on Barry, by the way. But here's what religion does is it kind of throws things into something and causes us to be blinded to what the truth of an account is trying to teach us.
Yes.
Now, this story, I mean, how many sermons do you remember, Barry, or have you taught some, in fact, as I probably have, that use this account of the of Shaul and his so-called conversion in order to kind of make ourselves look good, not understanding that we were also walking in the same spirit of blindness that Shaul walked in.
Oh, I'm sure it happens quite frequently. And personal application here. Uh, I was raised in a um, Pentecostal denomination, and uh, whereas my classmates in elementary school typically went to the church that was conveniently located somewhere close by, they were all very much Baptist or similar to.
Mm-hmm.
So when I realized that they didn't worship the way that we did, I was different, and I was, to my estimation, the only one that I knew in school that was so oriented. So the idea of inviting a friend from school to go to church with me, where it was apt that the choir would disintegrate after somewhere in the second or third song, and people would what we called shouting and dancing and speaking with tongues, and it was a lively commotion.
Mm-hmm.
The few times that I actually took someone with me, typically they came out of there with their eyes about this big around, wondering what happened.
I remember that first service for me that coming from a Nazarene Baptist background and walking into Assembly of God and like, whoa, what in the world is going on?
Somebody plugged these people into a wall.
Yeah.
So the issue was though, Mike, in those days, the holiness theme was strongly preached, which interpreted meant women didn't wear cosmetics or
Mhm.
jewelry. Um, you definitely, in the days of the mid to late 60s, when hairstyles started to change, it was very often preached that men should not wear long hair, um, that no finger rings for anybody. We didn't go to movies or amusement parks. I mean, it was just a very, our word for it was a clothesline doctrine. It was very much about what you wore. Of course,
Mm.
the hemlines of skirts were really high in those days. And oh, Lord, they preached a lot about that. So there was a better than thou attitude,
Mhm.
a very religious attitude in comparing ourselves to others. And it could, at times, in conversation or even out of the pulpit, get critical of those who didn't practice the gifts of the Spirit in operation, i.e., my Baptist friends. So I battled with a Shaul mindset
Mm.
of not looking down on those who didn't worship the way I did. But all the time, I was afraid that they would find out how our folks worshiped, and if they ever heard of that, they would mock and make fun of it at school. And I dare not say, "Well, that's me." I
Mm.
dodged the conversation.
Mhm.
Religious persecution is also um, demonstrated by interdenominational infightings or bomb launchings.
Mhm.
And we haven't come so far out of the church parking lot to start our Hebraic root conversation, congregations where we do the same thing.
Mm.
It's no longer over practicing spiritual gifts as much, but other items ad nauseum that we have talked about over and over and over and over and over again. So
So
this
good.
spirit of religion captivates our minds more often than we would think. We're not so far removed from the beginning of Acts chapter 9 in the beginning verses. Mike, do you think that we might need an encounter with Yeshua to the degree that he knocks us back and that we get a what's the word, a real, I don't want to say shock necessarily, but just a major impact on our lives, like I didn't even know who you were.
Oh, yeah. I mean, as you're talking about this, I'm thinking pointing out does pointing out someone else's blindness help you to see?
It's a you know what Yeshua said, get the 2 by 4 out of your eye to get the speck
Yeah.
of dust out of your brother's.
Yeah, but so what is the goal of pointing out someone else's blindness? It is to it is to make me look good. So I can always find something in someone else's life that they're blinded to.
Hmm.
That's it's in this day. I mean, you see someone with a Biden sign or a coexist on their bumper sticker or something. You go, well, they're blind to this. The question should instead be, I wonder how much I'm blinded to. And this holds true in Hebrew roots congregations and people. I think that there is this tendency to just kind of point the finger at everybody else's blindness so that maybe I can look a little bit better in my own eyes instead of saying, I understand that I've come a long ways. There was a day that, that whether it was falling off a donkey or just falling to the ground, right? Um, there's been times that I can go back in my own life and see, wow, that was kind of an event that caused me to have some scales taken off my eyes. But have the scales totally been taken off? And I think that if anyone says, and you could probably post on Facebook, and there'd be people that say that they have, well, I see totally clearly now. You know, that's one of the most arrogant thoughts that a person can have. I truly believe that there's probably going to be more Shaul experiences for all of us in coming weeks and months and years and whatever it takes between here and the kingdom. And maybe one of the greatest, um, I mean, here Paul, Shaul, says he fell to the ground. Well, why did he fall? Did he was he knocked to the ground? And as I was reading this again, I've thought many times about this. Was he knocked to the ground? Or was he very voluntarily falling down in worship? It's assumed that he was knocked to the ground. But is that not true? That when he saw this light, that he realized what that light was, who that light was.
Right.
And in that, he fell to the ground in worship. If we looked at the whole account different than what it really says.
I'm looking to see in a translation what that word is.
I didn't look at that one.
He fell.
No. Okay.
So it could be that he prostrated himself.
Yeah.
Something you said a few moments ago about the scales fell from his eyes brought to mind a true story. There was a woman in a particular congregation, an elderly woman, and a friend of mine at the time was her pastor. I actually ended up going and pastoring this same congregation some years later. But Mike, she had a looked like a large mole on her cheek, about right here under on her cheekbone,
Hmm.
and it was about the size of a nickel. It was large. So she's got this large, prominent place on her face, and it became cancerous. They prayed for her one night. She had her hands out like this in front of her head. That thing fell off of her face and landed in the palm of her hand.
Hmm. Okay.
And when she opened her eyes, she looked down and saw that laying in her hand, and she went, I don't believe it. It reattached. She ended up dying from it.
Wow.
Now, that was the story that I was told by my friend who was the pastor. Um, the scales fell from Shaul's eyes. When he received his sight, it says it fell what looked like scales. Let's be Mike Clayton correct here. And it says,
something like scales fell.
immediately there fell from his eyes as it were scales, and he received his sight. Rav Shaul had an amazing light encounter with Yeshua, who challenged him and said, You're persecuting me. Now, whatever this experience was to him, however he received it, not how we read it, but however he received it, he immediately began to recognize, I'm wrong, I need to change. The fact that he had been seeing just a few moments ago and now he's blind or blinded, and he's told what to, I mean, he's hearing Yeshua's voice just like Moshe was hearing at Mount Sinai. he's told a man named Hananiah is going to come and pray for you. The man shows up and he said, I was sent here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeshua spoke to me and said to come here. If the scales fell from his eyes, why in the world, now that he has Yeshua as his Adonai, would he put the scales back on his eyes, serving Yeshua through the scales? You follow what I'm saying? We can't, there needs to be such an encounter with Yeshua in our lives that we not only have scales and blinders and personal filters where we interpret everything according to our preferences, our upbringing, our previous worldview. We need to take those off, but to find Yeshua and then put them back on. And now I got Yeshua enabling me to walk in my religion.
Mm-hmm.
That's bad stuff.
Because the whole account is, and this is the problem I have with this account, is that how it's been used. It's been used to lump all of the Jews into one big pot of unbelief.
Oh,
But
yeah.
this is talking about a person, Shaul, who was part of a sect of Judaism in that day that was very religious. But to just say that, well, this is only about Shaul and the Jews. I mean, I know of people religious people. I've got an old friend of mine that pastored a church. I won't tell you where, I won't, but I won't say. She she started a congregation, a church in a city. And because she was a woman, it was a very, very religious town, still is to this day. Later on, she found out that I think it was one of the Southern Baptist pastors in that town actually put out a contract for her death. Now, that's kind of the height of religion, isn't it?
I'm kind of dumbfounded.
Yeah, I mean, this pastor actually came to this person later on. I got this firsthand. Came to this person later on and repented and apologized and said, I was wrong. Which, I mean, talk about having the scales taken from your eyes. To put out a death contract, hire someone to kill someone. I mean, this person during those days had to have police escorts.
Wow.
It got that bad. Religion is something that's not just, this group of people or that group of people. Religion is something that blinds. And here's the crazy thing about it, Barry, is that when Shaul goes to Damascus with good sight, but is blinded so that he can see.
I was going to say, he had these scales on his eyes all along, as did the council that authorized him with papers to go to Damascus. Now, the storyline is he was going there to arrest anyone, man, woman, or child, well, men or women. Try not to read anything in it, so it might don't get on me here, and bring them bound to Jerusalem.
Slaughtered your donkey today.
Well, I'm going to leave the donkey out of it. He was probably walking on foot. All right. So he's come from the high priest with an authorization. What were they trying to accomplish? They were trying to maintain, in their estimation, the purity of the practice of their belief, their religion. This sect of believers who were following Yeshua and calling him the Mashiach was a deviation from the norm. So therefore, they had to be stopped, lest this thing become infectious and spread abroad. Shaul, go put a plug in this. I've got papers that authorize me from a religious court to arrest you. Now, to put it in modern perspective, it's been, and I don't really want to go down this trail, but a half an inch here. It's been already put out on the internet in a variety of places. I saw it all over the place yesterday. That the next thing that the new administration is talking about is moving against the Second Amendment. And for those who don't live in the United States, that would mean basically that they would come to your house to confiscate your weapons. So they have authorization. That same mindset that would rise up in us of, oh no, how do I handle this? I don't want to be arrested, but I won't give up what I have. It's the same mindset that those in Damascus would have had. I don't want to be arrested, but I will not give up Yeshua. But there is a force coming to arrest me for my belief. Can I tell you that Yeshua put a stop to that and took the biggest weapon that the religious court had and converted that weapon into a mighty light for himself and his kingdom? Yeshua has the same way of doing things in our day. Let's just make a little application here. Don't have to camp out real long. But in America, there is a bit of a panic underneath the surface of all the rage, the anger, the disappointment, the frustrations, and all of those other negative emotions. There's a little bit of a panic about what's coming, and are the rumors true, and how far are they going to push this thing. Yeshua has a way of turning things around and causing a different result than what we're anticipating. The greatest thing that we can do in this country right now is to intercede and seek the face of Yeshua. Imagine the passion that would have been in Rav Shaul's heart right after he got immersed. As soon as he could see, the next thing it says, after he ate, he was strengthened. But right before that, right before he even ate anything, he'd been fasting for 3 days. He was mikvahed. He was immersed. Let's seal this with an immersion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to lose this. Can you imagine the passion then that he would have sought Yeshua with, having just met him and realized, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. I've been reading this from the wrong angle all the time. There's a completely new path. It's the same zeal that you and I would have pursued after we were introduced to the Hebraic understanding. Just getting a taste of it. It's like, wait a minute. There's more to the scriptures than what I've been preaching and teaching and living. Suddenly the book starts breathing at you and standing up and living in front of you. That's an exciting time. Even then, though, you can begin to re-identify everybody you know. Well, they don't know this and they don't know that, and I think I need to go tell them. How did that work out for us?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we try to take the blinders off of someone else's eyes, how does that work out? It doesn't. This is a story. How many of these people that are in this congregation in Damascus? And I find it interesting. They were called the Way. If any of us want to figure out what we are called today, it goes all the way back to into Deuteronomy. Also, that the people then were called the Way. Moshe said that. I know that today there's a cult that has hijacked that name, but that's literally what the scripture calls us. How many of those people that were in that congregation, when they heard that Shaul was coming their way. Maybe there was a Twitter post or something like that. How many of those people began to pray for Shaul?
Now that's an interesting thought, Mike. Who invited Yeshua to change the man?
Is that what it says of pray for your enemies? So instead of disconnecting from our enemies, is the message here, and we're going a lot of different places that we didn't plan to go, but that's not unusual. Is the message of this account more about, instead of disconnecting with our enemies, begin to pray for our enemies and look for ways to maybe speak truth? That, where's this guy, Ananias? Ananiah? Where is this guy at? What where did he come from? We're not really told at the moment. There's a guy that's, maybe he's the one that had been praying, and all of a sudden, he's praying for this guy Shaul, and all of a sudden he sees a vision. It's like, okay, well, here, I'm going to answer your prayer, kind of like Moses. I'm going to answer the prayers of the cries of the people of Egypt, and I'm going to use you, or the Hebrews in Egypt. I'm going to use you. And so maybe it was Ananias that is the one that's praying for Shaul. Who knows who it was? But then the Almighty uses a man. I mean, could not the complete revelation have been given when Shaul fell off his donkey? Um, could not the whole revelation have been given to Shaul at that time? No, he then uses a man, brings a man into the situation. So should we be looking for people that are questioning their own beliefs, and how can we be used? I'm going to say something that's really not going to go over well. How can we be used by the Almighty to speak to people that maybe don't agree with us today, but here we're supposed to be the revelation in their life when we've disconnected ourselves with any way of communicating with them? Like,
Yes.
I'm going to cancel this account and that account and that account, and I'm just going to go over and find a new social media with all people that agree with me, so we can talk about how we agree with each other and how we're all right.
I heard someone wisely put it this way: you don't move out of your house until you've either bought or built a new one. So if you abandon a platform without another place that you can do the same work, you're going to be out on the street.
Mm-hmm.
You got to build the other place first. And I understand the righteous indignation. I get that. I really do, and I'm disgusted to my toenails. It's just you got to use what you have. I just kept thinking yesterday about Yeshua talking about using unrighteous mammon. You, it's a mechanism. It's a means at this moment. Um, let me shift gears here just slightly, Mike. It says that when Rav Shaul was in Damascus, that Yeshua told Hananiah to go pray for him. He says in verse number 11, he's praying.
Mm-hmm.
Rav Shaul could have been sitting in someone's house angry that Yeshua blinded him. No, it's not so much that Yeshua blinded him, but the truth, the light of Yeshua blinded him. It overwhelmed him to the place Yeshua caused him to stop looking at things the way he used to look at them. So he's spending 3 days fasting and praying. How much more a challenge is it going to be when he hears, as Yeshua said at verse 15, he is a chosen vessel of mine to bear my name before nations, sovereigns, and the children of Israel, for I shall show him how much he has to suffer for my name.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, Rob Scholl. I'm here to pray for you. You're going to see again. And then I need to tell you about how much you're going to suffer because of this experience. You're going to be shipwrecked 3 different times. You're going to spend a night and a day in the deep. You're going to be beaten with rods. You're going to be stoned and left for dead. You're going to be imprisoned. You're going to be whipped. Eventually, you're going to be beheaded because of the glory of this new encounter you have with Yeshua. And that's just the short version.
Yeah.
Mike, we don't suffer very much. We eat breakfast and lunch and dinner and snacks in between. We have reasonably comfortable beds to sleep in. I've got a choice of shirts to put on every day. My home is warm or cool according to the climate. I got fuel in my automobiles. I've even got a few dollars in my pocket. How much suffering is that? If I need to go somewhere today, even if I needed to drive to your house, I could do that. That's over 7 hours drive.
Mm-hmm.
I could be there this evening if I so chose to do so. I had the freedom to move, to go. How much suffering is involved in that? The idea that we would be told you can't get on a plane because of your belief. That's floated out there right now. You're not allowed to go into a place of business because of your belief. You can't bank with us because of your preferences. There's sentiment in our legislatures and congresses to limit us and persecute us because of a preference of beliefs, something that's in our mind.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that's unjust, that's not fair, that's not right, that's just awful. Rav Shaul, that's easy according to what he went through, and he still made the choice. Have we had such an encounter with Yeshua that if they told us, because of your belief in Yeshua, you cannot leave town, or you're limited as to what foods you can buy, or the same persecution would be put on us because of our belief in Yeshua? What would we do? Would we grab our weapons and run and say, "You're either going to permit me or I'll shoot you"?
Mm-hmm.
What a witness that is.
Oh, yeah.
Here's where I'd like to see us go, and I'm sure we'll deal with this at least once more. The encounter with Yeshua ended up with Rav Shaul being shown how much he was going to suffer. But he was also told, you're going to be my witness in front of the most influential opportunities that anyone has ever had. And it was through him that signs and wonders and miracles took place. Are we willing to endure persecution because of our encounter with Yeshua, that it is so dramatic and impacting on us? We put up with the persecution. We also would then become vessels of power and anointing. We want to return to the congregations in the book of Acts. Now you know what the book of Acts is talking about. It's not just the miracles, it's the persecution that brings it about as well.
Are we willing to look at our own blindness instead of pointing out the blindness? And yes, I can look at a lot of different people today and I can see their blindness. But is my pointing out their blindness helping me to see?
I guess what we're saying is, I want you to be able to see like me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what if you were blind too?
And there's a verse I didn't get to it. There's a verse in Isaiah, I think it is Isaiah, that is really speaks to that. I'll try to get it before next week. But it's like the blind leading the blind, and both of them fall into a ditch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're walking along in blindness, and somehow you can get a bunch of other people, and I'm not. This is not a statement against regarding people that are blind physically, or in a they can't see with their eyes. Okay, this is spiritual blindness. If you can get it, if you're blind, but you can get enough people around you that are also blind to agree with you on the right direction, but you all fall in the ditch, what good did that do? You all agreed on the wrong direction. If I get it in a crowd of people that all agree in going in the wrong direction, guess where we're going to go? The wrong direction.
Mm-hmm.
There comes a time that you've got to say, no, I'm not taking a step forward from here until I have my sight. And maybe that starts with a moment of worship. And I'm going to give Shaul the benefit of the doubt here and say that when he fell to the ground, it was an act of immediate worship. When the truth was revealed to him, his first response was worship.
Mm-hmm.
And through that worship came sight.
I wrote a song many years ago. The second verse says, people had taught me what they thought was right, but all of my teachers had inherited lies.
Mm-hmm.
Religious deception wears a clever disguise. And the last line of that verse is, it's so hard to see when you close your eyes.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be raised in a system or to be a part of a system that blinds you. The worst thing that could have happened to Rav Shaul is that he fought against Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
You just let me get up off of this ground and be able to see again. I'll show you, Yeshua, where you're wrong. I rebuke you and don't you ever come back to me again type mindset. To encounter this man that is coming to lay hands on him and pray for him so that he receives sight and tell him what his mission is going to be. And then Rav Shaul gets up and arrests him for being a follower. Mike, when truth is sitting right in front of us and we choose our culture, we choose our preferences, we choose our training that has been elsewhere over truth looking us right in the face, that's like trying to see where you're going with your eyes closed.
Yeah. We've gone a lot of different places here, and maybe we've just kind of set a little bit of a foundation to move forward with this, which is kind of our plan for next week. That's subject to change at any moment. But let me finish out, Barry, with a verse, and maybe this will be something that can springboard us into continuing this subject. I was in Israel. This was back. I can't even remember what. Wait a minute. Yeah, it's 2012. I was there with the grape. I was there pruning the vines. We went to Yad Vashem.
Mm-hmm.
As others are walking around, I've been in Yad Vashem. I decided to go down to the Walk of the Righteous Gentiles and on down to the communities, the area that's dedicated to the communities. I'm just walking around there kind of aimlessly, and I saw a couple that walked by me, and we said hi. I said hi, how you doing? They walked by, and then they turned around and said something to me, like where are you from or something. So I turned around, and we just kind of exchanged little niceties there for a few moments, and the man looked at me and said Isaiah 42:16, and turned and walked away. And I just kind of stood there because I had no idea what Isaiah 42:16 said to begin with. And it was just like out of the blue. I finally went back, grabbed the scripture, and it says this: the blind I will lead on a road they don't know. On roads they don't know, I will lead them. I will turn darkness to light before them and straighten their twisted paths.
Mm.
This is 8 years ago. I'm still not quite sure what that verse means. But maybe we can both discuss it a little bit, look at it a little bit more, and come back next week, because maybe it's that blindness of Shaul that brings us to another verse, which is actually where we should be going. It's like, maybe he used the blindness of Shaul to get us to see something that we need to see in our day.
Could be.
We'll go with it.
All right. Well, I'm sure that this wild ride of a variety of thoughts and considerations out of this Damascus road is left some heads spinning. Like, what did they just say? But hopefully, something
I'm
is.
kind of the same. I'm kind of doing the same thing myself right now, so it's okay.
So hopefully, there is something for you to. Maybe there's something there for you to chew on. We do really appreciate you viewing. It's a great joy to watch through the next week, people clicking on and viewing the videos. We also appreciate your comments. And thank you very much for your kind remarks. If you have questions, we'll do our best to address them. If I don't know, I'll give it to Mike. He knows everything. And
I do have an answer to everything. There's not a question you can ask me that I cannot answer. The answer may be,
I don't know.
No, but I can answer it.
All right. So until next week, shalom to you all. And we do hope to see you again. Thanks.
All right. See you, Barry.